Welcome into another Garnet Trust interview. We have offensive lineman Colin Henrich. And Colin, I like your story for so many different reasons. You know, you come on, you walk on, you went to one of the best high schools in the country when it comes to high school football at IMG Academy, but you decided to come to South Carolina. And I'm sure a large part of that had to do with the fact that your father, Chuck, played for the Gamecocks in the 90s.
I mean, to be honest, I was trying to write my own story for a little bit in the recruiting process, but it just ended up, just being a perfect fit. So I just went with my heart.
What was that like though? Because during that time, you have a new head coach coming in here in Shane Beamer. Did you talk at all with Will Muschamp, or was this something that you had a relationship with Shane and some of these coaches once they arrived in January last year?
So my freshman year, I had an offer from the old staff. And I knew Coach Beamer from Oklahoma because he recruited some of my old teammates at St. John's in DC. And so when I transferred to IMG, some of my coaches knew what was going to happen. We had the old strength coach, Coach Dillman, come down and be a head strength coach at IMG. And, he pretty much came down, laid it, what was going to happen to South Carolina, and they were just clear-cutting it at that time. And this was back in November. And, he pretty much laid it out for me. And I was just, when I came home from IMG, I graduated in December, I came home and I texted Coach Beamer because one of the Gamecocks, just was like, yo, I put your film out to Coach Beamer and just said, look, this kid is legit and, you should really it's going to be a steal for you. So I sent him a lengthy text to him January 28th. And I just pretty much told him, I was like, my passion for South Carolina, why I care about South Carolina and what I can do for the city of Columbia and, for future generations. I pretty much told him that I'm tired of watching 2-win seasons happen and what I can offer to the team. And he pretty much texted me back within the hour and then gave me a call and he said, look, I don't have any spots for you. He's like, I'd love for you to come down. I know what you have to offer. And he pretty much, came to me, called me. We talked about it. Me and Coach Atkins kind of really hit it off. And then I just sort of sat around and waited because I did have offers from Virginia Tech and Arizona. And Arizona was way, way out of the way coming from Virginia. And then Virginia Tech, just is a little too close for home for me. And then, South Carolina sit right in the middle. And so the whole recruiting process, I had 10 offers, LSU, Tennessee. I was like, you know what? I want to make my own path. Just want to, go to South Carolina, not really go to South Carolina. My mom always told me, she was like, wow, she's going to come around. I'm like, nah. And, at the end of the day, Coach Beamer and Coach Atkins was just sort of the perfect storm. I love each of those coaches, and it just ended up being the best decision.
What's that experience like when you do go on as a walk-on? Because I think some people on the outside, you think of some of the movies, right? You think of maybe Rudy. I don't think people truly understand what that moment is like in that experience, number one. But number two, you see someone like your teammate this past year, Jalen Foster, goes from being a walk-on to being an All-American when it was all said and done from his college career. So, what is that? What is the thought process when you do make that decision to walk on? Because I think some people just think, they're just going to go there and just be an extra body. But there's been a lot of great stories. And like I said, with Foster, who have had tremendous careers and have worked their tails off, earned scholarships as well.
I mean, for me, it wasn't like a Burlsworth or a Rudy. For me, it's I had offers.
Yep.
And it's just COVID came around, just really just jammed my stuff up. Really did. And, my family and I were all prepared. Just these scholarships kept coming in and stuff. And I was just this is what's going to happen. I was pretty much determined. I went to IMG specifically to refine my skills and hone everything that I need to get ready for college, because I wanted to be ready for college, not just have that learning curve when I go into a university. And, I think with Foss, his story is so unique in a way that he did go to a program, he did have a scholarship, he did give it up and he did go to South Carolina, and now he's going to possibly be a first-round draft. For me, I saw, I just stripped a lot of ego away. Because I was like, man, I had offers. I had all this stuff. What's happening now? I mean, my next best bet, not to, poo-poo on West Point, but it was West Point.
Mm-hmm.
And, it takes a special person to go to the Army. I'm just not that special person, And so it's just like I had to talk to my mom, my dad, my coaches. Coach Acosta, who was at IMG at the time, pretty much called me. He said, you need to take a good look at South Carolina. I said, why is that? Because I was not really bought in the whole walk-on thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you need to invest in your future if you really care about your future. I thought about that. My family and I were not really bought on the walk-on thing because it just was like not on our radar for 4 years of high school. I graduate and then I have about a month and a half to figure out what I'm going to do. And it was stressful. But I said, you know what? My family and I, we sat down, we said, well, we got to invest for next year or two in this. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be, it's going to be costly, but, knowing the type of player and worker that I am, I just put my head down and work and just really, really just grind out what I need to grind out. Cause, a lot of people, I'm not going to lie to you, really don't work like I work. Like, it's just like this like work ethic that I have. That's just an insane, like obsession that I have.
And do you feel, and do you feel though, when you walk on in your situation, right? You have the offers, how talented you are. And like you said, it was a ego check. It puts you in a situation where it's like, hey, there's going to be people that look at me and they're like, oh, he's a walk on. Do you feel like, you already have that work ethic, even if you were on scholarship, but with not having one, do you feel like you have that added chip on your shoulder now because you're working your tail off, obviously, to get that scholarship one day, but you're also trying to, crack the starting lineup and do all those great things by the time you graduate as well?
I mean, like the whole walk-on thing really isn't a permanent thing. You know what I mean? It's a temporary thing. So like, I do have that chip on my shoulder. I do have that like Rocky-esque, huge chip after he lost to Apollo type thing. You know what I mean? So like, it's just one of these things that I go in there and you kind of have to change your mentality from, my school's getting paid for to you got to be have a little more intensity, a little more, stuff about you, a little more everything than the scholarship play. Like I walk in there and when I'm playing pissed off because I am paying for school and you're not. And so someone's going to have to pay for my school one way or the other. And so that's just my mindset of how I go in there, do the practices and workouts and stuff. And, right now, I mean, I feel, and the coaches told me that it's really, paying off.
Being able to work with some of the offensive linemen and I mean, shoot, when you're going through the recruiting process and you look at some of the guys that have come through this way, they've produced a lot of talented guys on the offensive line. Being able to learn from guys like, and I think of, one of my old interns back in the day, and Eric Douglas. I mean, he's basically a grandfather now on the team. You can give him jokes now. He's been there for longer than I feel like that I've been covering the team. But I say that because you have an opportunity to learn from a lot of great players. What has that process been like going through this? I mean, you could have gone anywhere, and I'm sure you would have had great senior mentors or just upperclassmen to lead you. But what has it kind of been like this past year for you, working with those guys that are still on the team, but even guys that, moved on from last season as well?
Really, like, I kind of pick like what that one player, like Eric's really, really just a smart player. Like he's just a very cerebral player. And like, I look at that and I admire that. And I see how he reads defenses, fronts, coverages as a center. It's just, just one of those things that I'm just like, wow, that really is a unique factor of him. And then Javon Gwen, like his technique, he's a very technical player. Like that's some technique that I want to carry on and improve off of because he has great technique, but I want to have better technique than that. And he's, I'm watching him go through his progressions and how he does that. I mean, we got like Hank Manos, who's been there as long as God knows how long. You know what I mean? Just they're overall smart players. That's the overall theme that I got. Very, very good with technique and very smart players. And I really just, admire every single one of them. And, they didn't treat me any different for being a walk-on, because a lot of people get a notion like you walk on and it's like, oh, he's just going to hold the bag for me. Oh, he's just going to go to the scout team. And I'm not saying like none of that didn't happen. Like everybody holds a bag, everybody on scout team. Like that's just the right way your freshman year. But like they all worked with me. They all gave me, tips, pointers, and then, they expect you to compete as just anyone else. You know what I mean? And so if you can compete and hold your own, then that's when the respect was given. And, I definitely earned the respect, third week into the season.
We got to go back now. We got to talk about IMG because
yeah,
I mean, that's a school that has become a factory in more ways than one. And I think a lot of people that enjoy just football, right? I mean, could be just high school football, college football, the recruiting process. As you know, people enjoy recruiting down in this area. And there's a lot of talented guys that continue to come out of that school like yourself year in and year out. What is it like going there? And how does that prepare you for being able to play in the SEC, not just from a, on the field standpoint, but the stuff that people don't think about, the stuff behind the scenes, the film study and, just the preparation, because it just seems like it is literally going to school to play football.
Well, first of all, it's not like that.
I know that's the stigma. That's why I want you to break it.
All right, I'm gonna break this stigma. All right, so we got Lavassie now. He went to IMG. He knows we know what's up, right? So you go to practice. You wake up around 6:00, right? And you have to be in the cafeteria by 6:30. Eat your breakfast, and then it's like a quick 5-minute walk over to the football facility. So you walk over there. And you get your equipment on, you get ready, you go pre-practice, all that stuff. And, all the coaches have been in the NFL, so they know what's what. And so they're very, very, hard on us with technique and how we think and, what our processes is. And the practices itself were a lot harder than games because, the offensive line that I was with, we had both our tackles go to Alabama. Tyler Booker, J.C. Latham. Najee Harris currently has 31 offers. Greg Crippen went to Michigan. Our quarterback went to Michigan, and our running back is now at South Carolina, and the other one went to Penn State. And then our front four for defense all went SEC Big Ten. And so when you go in there, it's like the scout team periods, like they have to rotate, the ones and the twos. And the twos have sometimes more offers than the ones. It's just one of those things of who's more athletic and who's more durable for a game.
And how does that like when you go, right? And remind me, for you, did you transferred in there, correct? IMG?
I transferred in there, yeah.
So you go from basically being the top dog at your high school, and that's what happens with a lot of these guys, right? They ball out, whether it be private school, public school, they come on in, and then you might not necessarily be the starter. How does the egos in that regard work? And because I'm sure it's challenging because there's just so much talent across the board.
I mean, pretty much we all live together. So we're in the dorms and stuff. So like the egos like are there when you first get there. Mm-hmm. But like realistically, it's like pretty much Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Like it's like you got like Scott, you got guys, and game respects game. And if game doesn't respect game, then people get checked. And so, my time there, everyone respected everyone's game. And then if they saw a flaw or someone weaker, they would weed that out because we just don't have time for that. We're ready to win and we're ready to be good. And, when we went to school, people think, the football factory of IMG, like you just do football. Like everyone thought when I transferred, oh, you're going to do football for a whole semester. I was like, no, I was taking college level classes. Like this was
and you've gone through it now. I mean, it sounds like this is basically just preparation for college. I mean, the way that it's structured, right? I mean, very similar.
It's pretty much the same. Like,
and how much has that helped? And how much has that helped you though in making that jump? Not from just the fact that you were going up against, Power 5 talent, but being able to get that. Okay, this is what it's all about in terms of the routine. Because I mean, shoot, I did Division II. it took me a whole year to figure out, all right, shoot, okay, this is how I got to manage time. I mean,
Yeah.
how much has that helped you from a time management standpoint?
Time management. I mean, you're pretty much in school from 1 to 6. You're doing football from about 7 to 9, and then you're in there lifting from 9:30 to 10:30. Right. So you got to figure out, you got to be really meticulous with your minutes. Like you got to like really know what you're going to do. And so if you don't know what you're going to do, then it just leads into like this, this funk that you get into that I think we've all been in. It was weird for me when I first got to IMG because I went to, St. John's College High School in DC, and I took 8 classes a day. Right. And so I would take 8 classes a day, then do practice for like 3 hours. Those practices were grueling. So when I got to IMG, I was like, okay, I'm taking 4 or 5 classes here. It depends on my day. And then like, if my coach wants to have a meeting after class, it'll be like, all right, we're going to meet at 6:30 because everyone gets out at 6. All right, meet at 6:30. We go at 6:30, 6:30, about 7:30, go eat dinner, and then go to study hall from about like 8:30 to 9. And then you're pretty much like, you have to be in your dorms by 9. Like, there's no like, you're not playing around at 9:30. Like they make sure everybody's indoors by 9. And so, with that, like you wake up at 7 and you realize at 9 o'clock I have to be in my like room. So you have to use the best of your time. You can't just like mess around. You know what I mean? So when it's there's a time to play and there's time to work. And so that taught me the best of both worlds. So like coming to South Carolina, there's a lot of distractions in South Carolina, right? Especially on the weekend. So you have to understand there's a time to work, time to play. I take, my diet very seriously, me being a lineman. So I realized like in the morning, all right, this is the time, quote unquote, to work while I'm cooking like a healthy breakfast, or like get my lunch and dinner straight. So I'm not going to cook out like every other day. You know what I mean? So it's like, it really just taught you to mature and to become like a man on your own. And I was 17 years old, and a lot of people were like, my peers back home were just like, like, oh, I get to be with all my friends and stuff, and my whole family and stuff. I didn't get to be with my brothers, my mom, my dad, nobody. It was just me, football, school, and pretty much the rest. And I made some great connections and great friends from it. So, we definitely matured together. And I think Lavassier and I are definitely a lot closer because we went through that maturing process together.
You mentioned your dad who had the opportunity to play during those Steve Tannehill days. What do you remember about your dad from playing? I don't know if he's shown you some clips from his playing days, or, when you were younger, did you have any Gamecock gear? Was he someone that tried to push some Gamecock gear on you early?
No, that was my mom. She went down here and, my dad, he was here for about 2 years, ended up transferring to IUP up in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And PSAT.
That's right. Division 2.
Yeah, D2 right there. But when he was here, he won the first bowl here, all that stuff, the CarQuest Bowl. And so I went to like 2 reunions. And so it's like, Brandon Bennett and Steve Tannehill. And the 2 faces you see all over like Columbia. It's like, yeah, like we're really close friends. I'm like, what? And so like, my mom, to answer your question with the gear, my mom really like had the Marcus Lattimore jersey. I had like all the shirts, the hats and stuff. And then when I got into recruiting, like I sort of had to like peel back on that stuff because I was like, I got to be neutral minded here. And then my first offer was South Carolina. And that was like, the Pope came to town for my mom. She was just like in tears, crying for about 2 days. No joke.
Now, there's one question I'm going to have to ask you as we wrap things up about the actual team. The reason why I wanted to focus on you a lot, offensive linemen, they're not looking for the glory, but the offensive linemen, they usually don't get their stories out there as much, just because they're kind of just the lunch pail guys, right? Put the hard hat on, just go to work. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy being able to hear your story and, the connection with your father, Chuck, who played here. I'm sure that's going to bring back some memories for some of our Garnet Trust supporters who are listening to this. But the last thing I want to ask you is something that Shane Beamer has talked about, the coaching staff has talked about, some of your teammates have talked about. What have you noticed since the first day that you arrived on campus until this point now, going through these winter workouts and just the energy and just the mindset of this team, right now in comparison to where it was a year ago, and the trajectory of what Coach Beamer has done in just a short period of time?
I'm gonna be very honest with you. Like Frank Beamer's dad changed the whole perspective of football in Virginia. We wouldn't have Mike Vick and all that stuff. He changed the whole perspective for South Carolina Shane. And, when I talk to people at either St. John's or IMG, they always ask me, oh man, you know when South Carolina's coming around? Like I really want to, like they're actually excited that South Carolina comes around. When I was coming up and it was the Muschamp era, it was like, oh, I got an offer from South Carolina. But the bigger thing was I got an offer from, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And people are actually excited about South Carolina. They love South Carolina. Like the team itself, I mean, we are close. We are like, it's like a whole like brotherhood, and that sounds corny and cheesy. Like we legitimately hang out all the time from, a year ago where it was just like, oh, we had O-line and then O-line would hang out with the quarterbacks once in a while. Like we all hang out together no matter what. My roommate is a punter and my other roommate's a DB. Like those are two opposite sides of the spectrum right there. You know what I mean? And so like we get along just fine. Like we're just, really good friends. And, I think Coach Beamer, especially, he preaches love. And we definitely love each other and we definitely, care about each other. And, and he also preaches toughness and we're all very tough guys. I mean, he pushes it a little bit at times, but, he definitely, gets the most out of us. And, the practices are, always fun because he makes sure that it is physical. And me being an offensive lineman, I'm not going to stand there and, play patty cake with you. Like I want to hit you. So he makes it fun for everybody, but like we love being in the building. It's not like really a chore anymore. And definitely being around, going in the upstate, hanging out with some of my teammates, family and friends. Everyone's excited from what I've heard, about South Carolina, even at IMG, we got a lot of guys that control recruiting up there and they're very, very optimistic on Coach Beamer. And I'm very, happy to be a part of the change that hopefully is going to be around for a while.
That'd be quite the game of patty cake, a 6'3", 300-pound offensive lineman, and probably still growing, putting that off-season muscle weight on. And with Luke Day and everything. Colin, we appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you taking the time. We're very excited for not just obviously the program and the direction that it's headed in and next season, but we're excited for a guy like you who, took the path that is probably less traveled sometimes. We hear so much about the transfer portal and this and that. Everyone's going to make decisions for themselves. But it speaks volumes of what you're all about and coming in. And I'm sure Gamecock fans getting to know you now a little bit more, they're going to be pulling for you. And we're looking forward to that day when you are out there. And we're sure you'll make a big impact when that moment does happen.
It's going to be fun.
Colin, we appreciate it. If you want to support student athletes like Colin Henrich, be sure to continue to support the Garnet Trust so they're able to take advantage of this new era of NIL. For the latest on all your Gamecock news, keep it locked in to GamecockCentral.com.